Good morning, children. Today we are going to read a wonderful poem that talks about this borderless world. And the name of the poem is No Men Are Foreign, that is written by James Kirkup. James Falliker Kirkup, whose pen name was James Harold Kirkup, was an English poet, translator and a travel writer. He wrote around 30 books, many autobiographies, novels and plays. He was born on 23rd April 1918 in United Kingdom. He had his education in Durham University, and he was born with a British origin. He wrote many books. One of his famous books was No More Hiroshimas and many more. He was from the poetry, fiction and journalism genre, and he was a poet and a writer by profession. He died on 10th May 2009 in Andorra. So let me recite this poem to you. No men are foreign. Remember, no men are strange, no country is foreign. Beneath all uniforms, a single body breathes. Like us, the land our brothers walk upon. Is earth like this in which we all shall lie? They too, aware of sun and air and water, are fed by peaceful harvests, by war's long winter star. Their hands are ours, and in their lines we read a labor not different from our own. Remember, they have eyes like ours that wake or sleep, and strength that can be won by love. In every land is common life that all can recognize and understand. Let us remember we are not told to hate our brothers, it is ourselves that we shall dispose, betray, condemn. Remember, we who take arms against each other, it is the human heart that we defile. Our hells of fire and dust outrage the innocence of air that is everywhere our own. Remember, no men are foreign and no country is strange. So this poem actually talks about the concept of global brotherhood and equality that is without any kind of prejudice. In this poem, the poet believes that war is caused by the false beliefs of people who have seized the belief in the essential unity of man. So there are xenophobes who believe that a man hailing from a different country is to be hated and discriminated against. However, the poet assures his readers that man is just the same everywhere. He experiences the same and joys and sorrows and have been descended from the same ancestors. So there is no point that humanity is same all over the world, and in harming anyone we are harming our own self. In destroying another country we are destroying our own earth. Humanity is as unified entity. This poem is obviously a strong plea, a plea towards universal brotherhood. This poem talks about post-colonial poem which talks about globalization and its resultant human unity worldwide. It is written in late 1940s, when the entire colonial world was revolting against their oppressors. So let me paraphrase these lines. Remember, no men are strange and no country is foreign. In these lines, the poet tells his readers that men are not different from each other, simply on the basis that they hail from separate countries. They might fight for the army of this nation or that one, but underneath the uniform they are essentially similar. Even if we understand at this point that there are wars going on from one country to the another, but there is no solid reason behind. No human being is strange or different. Everyone is equal. Beneath the superficial surfaces of our bodies, even if uniform, they are wearing a different uniform, but all human beings have the hearts, minds and souls that is same. So there is a futility of war. We have a divisive mindsets that we are caught up in a war. But we need to remember that behind every superficial man, that is well said by the poet, that uniforms are living and breathing human beings just like you and me. So it means each human being is same. So it beautifully builds a concept that tells humanity in each human being is alive. So this is actually a plea towards raise our level of consciousness deeper and to the spiritual level. The poet says that all the land on earth is same. Moreover, every man will have to lie in the earth at one time or the other. That is, all men have to die, and all pieces of land are potential graveyards in that they can occasion reward for their occupation. Their hands are ours, and in their lines we read. In these lines, the poet says that reminds us that by trying to hate each other, we are trying to exploit others and their lands. So in these lines, the poet protests against the efforts of military and religious groups that encourage us to wage war against those of other persuasions. Poet is trying to betraying and condemning ourselves. There is no point in doing that. Exploitation will always lead to a superficial short-term success and no deep of spiritual kind of redemption in anyone's heart. In these lines, the poet is a compelling poem. The poet again reminds us of taking arms against each other. It means there is a futility of war. It is absolutely necessary for every man to love his fellow beings without creating divisions amongst them. Despite the differences between various nations, there is one thing that we all have in common. The common people live the same kind of life everywhere. Therefore, you can recognize the presence of that life no matter where you travel in this wide world. Let us remember, whenever we are told to hate our brothers, it is ourselves. In this stanza, the poet protests against the efforts of the military and religious groups that encourage us to wage war against those of other persuasions. The poet believes that those groups are misguiding their followers. They are asking their followers to hate people without realizing that it is our own brothers that we must hate. This is a form of self-destruction for the poet. Any hatred that we may harbor for any member of the human race is a tantamount or betrayal towards the species and our condemnation of its future. If we kill people of any other nation, we are in fact endangering the human species as a whole and its survival on earth. So, any division of labor is superficial. Our hands, whether we are in a digital field or we are in an agriculture field or any other field, speak of humanity, souls and minds that are capable of loving, having good feeling for each other and having the same thinking. We would have nothing to pass down to our future generation. So, the poet compels us to understand this point that in war as in hell, there is fire and smoke everywhere. So, the air that we breathe gets polluted because of that. As a result of this, the earth is becoming poisoned. The very air that we breathe is becoming impure and we will not be able to sustain human life for much longer. That is why the poet encourages us not to wage war on our fellow men, thinking they are foreigners and that their countries are unlike our own. The poem ends with the refrain that no men are foreign, no country is strange, and constantly putting stress on one important point that we are all are one in the spirit. We have to encourage mutual respect, dialogue for a truly humane, just and sustainable world in the future. So there are many poetic devices that are used by the poet in this poem that we also call rhetorical devices or literary devices. First, we don't have any identifiable rhyme scheme in this poem. So, there are many poetic devices or rhetorical devices or literary devices we say in this poem. We don't have any identifiable rhyme scheme in this poem. We have epistrophe. This device is used when the poet addresses his or his poem to an absent audience. In this poem, epistrophe is as an address all the advice directly to his readers. Then we have a metaphor. As we know that metaphor is a direct comparison. Comparison is made between two different things or ideas. In this poem, in the third line, as he compares his fellow human beings with his own brothers. In sixth line, he compares wars with winter, since reduced sources are available at both those sides. Even in the last line, the poet compares when he compares wars with hells. And then we have polysydeton. This device consists in the use of several conjunctions in close succession, especially when some could otherwise be omitted. In this poem, fifth line, when the poet has used sun and water and air, sun and air and water, repeating the conjunction, and this word and is unnecessarily repeated. We also have transferred epithet. This device is used when an emotion is attributed to a non-living thing after being displaced from a person. Most often the poet himself or herself is there. In this poem, the poet uses the device in the sixth line, in the phrase, peaceful harvest. It is not the harvests themselves that are peaceful, but peaceful social and political conditions that prevent a shortage of crops or famine and make harvest possible. So, the analysis of this poem. The poet tells us that all the divisions based on nation, caste, creed, color, or religion are baseless, since we all are similar in our basic need of the common resources for our life. We all have a common source of origin, and we all are dependent on the same resources for our survival. Since we all are same, we must shun all violence of all kinds and unite to make our lives better. Uniform here signifies the armies of several, and therefore are our own brothers. By being manipulated through brainwashing techniques of such armies, we end up endangering the survival of human species on earth, and then destruction of the world as we know it. That is why the poet encourages readers to push xenophobia out of their minds, and he calls upon the people to liberate the world from man-made barriers and partialism. Partialism means narrow outlook. We should finish that narrow outlook from our minds and liberate together for this betterment of the world. Thank you so much.